Try this again. Testing, 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 testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me just testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is working. That is working. I think that's it. Okay. Let me see here. I had a little, there was a glitch, so I had to, the OBS crashed. OBS crashed on me, but I think it's working now. I don't know, but whatever. I'll just go through my practice session either way. So, let's see. Alright. So I still feel like something's. Things working. Whatever. Let's keep it rolling. Keep it rolling. I'm gonna keep going now on my practice up here, and I'm gonna keep with my excuse. I'm on the 10th fret, but I have like the fretboard is starting at the 2nd fret over here, so don't let that throw anyone off. We're gonna be working the 10th fret. I'm gonna be adding my excuse again. My excuse is that I'm not as competent up here on the top of the guitar because it's a dreadnought and I don't play up here much, and when I do, I think of it as a Dorian normally. So this is a practice session. So I'm practicing to get better at it. And I just want to note here that in my perspective on like what I possibly bring to the table here, it's not that I've really played guitar since I was like 4 or something like that. That's not the thing. Or that I'm like a music, like, natural born music person or something from. But I started after college, really. So I didn't really learn like, with my ear, and I didn't really like take into like my like by heart all like the conventions that were used in natural or the music conventions at the time, including like piano conventions. And I think that has its pros and cons. Obviously, it has a lot of cons. My ear's probably not as good, clearly, and I don't know as much of the kind of theory stuff and whatnot. I've been working on the theory stuff, but maybe not like ear. I don't know, other kind of stuff. But in any case. and I'm not musically trained. I'm an accountant, right? But I've been noodling around with a guitar for like 25 years or so, and as an accountant and a teacher, I think I kind of like can basically break down the steps into smaller chunks, which I think what might be good for like learners that are maybe coming to it a little bit later, because it is stuff that you can break down into pieces and learn bit by bit. So that's just a good practice in general to do, even if it's just like a hobby to do. Guitar is clearly something that you can build on the skills from any small point, and then just train that small point and grow from that point. And so that's what I do, breaking down the fretboard. And I also feel like, because I didn't internalize all the rules and the conventions, I can look at it maybe with a little bit more clear eye to the fact that a lot of the rules and conventions are wrong. They're just not the most optimal way. Now you can argue why that is historically or this way. That's what the textbooks say and whatnot. But like just to name a few things that are ridiculous, right? I mean, one is that we don't use like spreadsheets to map out the information. I don't think there's any better tool that I've seen than Excel to map out a fretboard. It's just absurd to me, and it seems to me like to have the small string on top, as though it's sheet music, even though it's going to be easiest to mirror what you're doing from behind the guitar. Again, just seems naturally weird. That's clearly not the way that you would do it. To not use the software to flip the guitar around so it looks like I'm left-handed, but when you're trying to learn it and you're mapping out your information here, right, with the key right next to it, I guarantee you will learn faster that way. So you've got the low string on top. You've got the instructor with the guitar that has the low string on top, and you're mirroring it from your position behind the guitar where the strings are going in the same direction. I might not be a genius guitar player, but I bet you will make more progress this way than if you were the genius guitar player that's noodling around like a madman, and they don't, right? And they don't have and they got their fretboard backwards, and they're teaching it with sheet music that they learned when they were 4, right? So those are the things. And I also, so anyways, that's what I think I got. And then that's what I think I can kind of possibly contribute to a little bit. So I'm not claiming to be like a musical genius or anything. But anyway, so, okay. So let's get to the joke. And move forward here. Let's see. Quick joke. I'm still on my ranting of the mainstream media, and their narrative seems to be, I'm on the idea of the dog whistle now. They're on the constant search for the dog whistle, of what they call the far right dog whistle. I'm not saying like dog whistles haven't happened in history and whatnot, or they're not like a thing. It's just that if you're looking for the people that are trying to instigate the political, violence kind of thing, it seems like we're past the subtle dog whistle. Like it's the mainstream media is barking, We're not in like a Jane Fonda. You got to have a secret decoder ring to figure things out right now. That's not where it seems to me like this is, there doesn't seem too difficult. You just go on Blue Sky and they're just screaming the stuff out there, So anyways, that's where my joke is now. So I've got my my images and my rant for the dog whistle. So let's see what we got here. I'm gonna get my coffee. All right, one more drink for my monologue. All right. Dog whistles and rabid barking, a fairy tale for the unhinged. So let's talk about the irony. The kind so thick you could pave a runway with it. So you've got the mainstream of media, or as I like to call them, as you know, the mainstream of sewage, frothing at the mouth about so-called dog whistles. It's their favorite thing. It's their favorite thing. They say there's a dog whistle, and then they just interpret it in any way that they feel like interpreting the dog whistle that no one can hear except for them for some reason. So it's like really a dog whistle? First of all, I gotta say, dogs can't whistle. I've never seen a beagle belt out a tune. Why? Because due to having huge tongues that don't fit behind their teeth without making a with scrunched up like xylophone tongue, which isn't good for whistling, they can't whistle. Dogs can't whistle, okay? But sure, let's pretend political rivals are communicating through invisible ultrasonic whistles like a secret Morse code for maniacs. Because that's not ridiculous or anything. Because people aren't just yelling whatever they think right as soon as it comes into their mind in the most explicit way that they can articulate on whatever platform they are spewing it on. So, but here's the reality. Looking for dog whistles these days isn't necessary or productive. It's like looking for Bigfoot riding a unicorn that was bred in Atlantis. So it's imaginary, it's make-believe, it's the fairy tale bedtime stories that hacks tell each other on MSNBC sleepovers. Not because there's not such a thing as a dog whistle historically, but because, of course, the dog whistle is just a cover for whatever the propaganda is that they're going to then spew out there and say that I heard it with the secret whistle, but the whistle wasn't for me. It was for the other dogs out there, but I heard it, and I'm the only one that... So even if the dogs could whistle, which they can't, they wouldn't. The dogs wouldn't whistle. Why? Because it hurts their ears. Dogs don't like the... Dog whistles are really people whistles meant for torturing dogs. And that's what the mainstream of sewage is basically doing. They're torturing people with their whistle. They're supposed to be inaudible to humans, yet somehow Rachel Maddow hears them loud and clear every time someone disagrees with her. You know, I'm starting to suspect she's the whistler. I don't know. I don't see how no one else sees this. All right. She's the whistler because she's the only one. How else could you explain that she's the only one that can hear the whistles and then like interpret them in a way that no one else knows what she's talking about? But then she like puts, because she's the so you want irony? Here it is. Some people screaming about dog whistles are the ones literally barking violence on prime time. So you don't need a whistle. So these aren't subtle suggestions. You don't need secret decoder rings. These are rabid, foaming, froth at the mouth, rage much snarling into the camera like they're cast for barking bad. Breaking news edition. So they aren't just hearing dog whistles. They're issuing howling commands to the pack. Riots? Mostly peaceful. It's not really a whistle, right? Arson? It's a symbol of the poor guy's righteous pain that he's expressing. That's kind of like a pretty explicit, support of the looting. That's just a harmless cry for help with a free flat screen. These aren't watchdogs. These mainstream of sewage. They're attack dogs, unleashed by the pound and fed a steady diet of victimhood, Marxism, and soy. And here's the kicker. They have the audacity to call everyone else dangerous, violent dog whistle listeners. So I am neither dog, nor do I like listening to whistles, unless it's calling my steak order to the table. So let me say it plainly. Stop chasing the mythical dog whistle. Subtlety does not seem to be our current form of discord at this point in time, okay? We're not living in a world built by Jane Austen at this point in time. The dog whistle narrative is a bedtime story for gullible journalists and Twitter mobs with journalism degrees from Hogwarts. Instead, take a look around. What you will find are real dogs slobbering, bloodthirsty, rabies-infested, ideological pit bulls barking hate in plain English, not coded, not subtle, not a whistle, but a cold-blooded, curdling, unmistakable howl emanating where from? From the sewage. It's coming from the sewage. That's what they're trying to hide. They're trying to hide the source of the whole thing. That's where they come up with the dog whistle narrative, so they can cover like the tracks of where it's coming. Okay, I wrote a song about it. Pseudo wrote a song about it. Let's hear it. See what we got.
Dog whistles and rabbit barking, a fairy tale for the unhinged. Irony is so thick you could pave a runway with this fringe. Mainstream stream of sewage frothing at the mouth tonight. They're chasing ghostly whistles under neon studio lights. Dogs can't whistle, never seen a beagle build a tune. Tongues like xylophones scrunched up under the moon. Secret Morse code for maniacs, ultrasonic games they play. But it's Bigfoot on a unicorn, it's bedtime news they say. Even if dogs could whistle, it hurt their ears all day. Dog whistles are people whistles, torturing dogs for pay. Supposed to be inaudible, yet some folks always hear. Like Metal's got the superpower, blowing whistles loud and clear. Dogs can't whistle, never seen a beagle bell tune. Tongues like xylophones scrunched up under the moon. Secret Morse code for maniacs, ultrasonic games they play. But it's Bigfoot on a unicorn, it's bedtime news they say. Screaming about dog whistles while barking violence live on air. Rabid rage mutts in primetime froth and foam and glare. Issuing howling commands to the pack. Riots mostly peaceful they claim. Arson's a symbol of pain. Looting a cry for help they frame. These are watchdogs, they're attack dogs unleashed. Fed on victimhood Marxism, so their hunger never ceased. Calling everyone else dangerous while their jaws drip red. I'm not a dog, don't like whistling, call my steak instead. Dogs can't whistle, never seen a beagle belt a tune. Tongues like xylophones scrunched up under the moon. Secret Morse code for maniacs, ultrasonic games they play. But it's Bigfoot on a unicorn, it's bedtime news they say. Stop chasing the mythological dog whistle, it's never been there at all. It's a bedtime story for gullible journalists.
let's bring it down. Dogs can't whistle. You're torturing the dog. I know what's happening. You're the whistler, torturing poor innocent dogs. Okay. Last time we did the C, the Ionian up here, and we're leaning forward. We leaned forward last time with a D shape. So we're gonna keep it going on the Ionian up top, but this time we're gonna lean up. So we're gonna be going what I would call the reach up. A lot of times people have an issue with the reach up type shapes because it's kind of inverted up top here. So when you reach up, you have to take the inverse distance. So let's find this one here, and so the main shape might look something like that. So we're on the Ionian. So if I'm going to find a third for the reach up shape, I'm going to take it from the Ionian, which is the major shape. So I'm building an inverted chord because it's going to have the lowest note will not be this one here, which is going to what I'm visualizing as the root. And so if I pick up the third is going to be 4 notes away. Why? Because it's a major third. And therefore, if I'm going to find the third on this string up top, how would I do that? I'd have to say, well, it's 4 notes away from the local or clockwise distance, which would be 12 minus 4, or 8 notes away if I go above it, meaning 5 notes between the string, -5, -10, and then 9, 8. So we have an 8 note away negative distance, which would be a counterclockwise distance. The clockwise distance would be 12 minus 8, which would be 4. So we have a 4 note away from the Ionian node, 2 modal half steps, meaning if we were on the Ionian, it would be 1, 2 modal half steps up. And we have a major third. If I made that the 1, it would be the third from the 7 note collection. Now, I want to take the time here to also point out real quick, before I get into this in too much detail. I did I'm making a course that we have a link to, and the last bit of the course that I have is basically my idea for what I think a current DAW system should be, as well as basically how you should write your musical system or music in a way, even if by hand, so that it will be most easily transposable and tinkerable. And so I want to point that out real quick. And if you want to look at the overview of that, let me just show you this real quick. It's this presentation. So it's on this channel, alternative exercise, mind, music, and then this is the thing here. And the reason I think that's useful is because it kind of maps out how I think the most efficient way to jot down your music is, which I think is difficult for guitar players sometimes because you have a choice of, should I write it in like a sheet music format? Should I write it in a DAW? How do I transpose from a sheet music to a DAW? Or do I do it in tablature? Do I just write out chords? And so this kind of explains a little bit of those three methods, and then gives what I think is the most efficient way to jot down your musical ideas, even if by paper and pencil, and then compare that basically to what like a DAW format would look like. Let's say like over here. So here's like a DAW format where it's like stacked. And I feel like if there's any computer programmers out there, this I believe is the most efficient way, or what I think the DAW system will be like in the future, because it allows you to tinker with things. It allows you to easily rotate. I believe that whether you play something with the guitar into the DAW, or whether you do a MIDI system, you should be able to designate the whole song and or parts of the song to the perspective of a certain collection of notes, one of the 12 collections of notes, and a modal perspective, what you've seen as the tonic. And therefore, the whole song should be rotatable to me through the transposable automatically, and rotatable through all the modal perspectives. So I feel like a computer programmer should be able to take this information if they wanted to, and make like a DAW or at least a MIDI kind of thing that has that capacity, because that would increase the number of I believe that'll increase the amount of tinkering that you can do with a song. And I think it's more efficient than especially for people doing things by ear, than trying to teach them a DAW as though they're learning the piano. It's not a piano, right? The piano has its own problems. They're playing on a computer, right? So I don't think that's the most efficient thing for like most people that are just learning to make their beats, right? Which is a huge part of the market. That they don't need to learn how to play the piano. They need to learn the most efficient way to enter the information into a DAW system and then tinker with it, which I think this is the way to do it. So anyways, I might be like, if I'm wrong with that, I'd love to hear, like, maybe I'm wrong, or people will say, well, that's not the way we've done it before. But I really think these days, what we've done before is not the most efficient. It's stuck because we wrote it down like language, and it can't change once you write it down. But now it's not stuck anymore because we have AI. The musical systems are more translatable than language by far, because it's totally logical. Language is way more complicated to translate than like a logical music system. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse right now for making it as streamlined as possible, and it's not right now. It's not as streamlined as possible. Okay, so that's what I feel like. So maybe I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'd love to, show me I'm wrong. That would be good. Or if you're just saying that's not the way we've always done it. I don't care how we've always. I don't care if Beethoven did it this way or whatever. With all due respect, I mean, if it's not the most efficient way of doing it, like, I mean, I just don't understand, like, why. Okay. So in any case, let's go over here, and this is going to be the chord. Okay. So what would I call that? I would call that a 3-note Ionian, or you can call it a C major triad. I'd like to call it something by the node. So it'd be like a 3-note Ionian, or an Ionian 2-modal whole step, meaning you start on the Ionian, you go 2 modal whole steps up to get to the last note, which would be 2 times 2 would be 4 modal half steps up to get to the last note, which would be here, a 7-note away from the Ionian node, 4 modal half steps, which would be a perfect fifth. I can call it from endpoint, which would be a Nashville number 1-5 modal range chord, or an Ionian Mixolydian modal range chord, an IX modal range chord. From a color system, it would be a spring green to a magenta modal range chord with a distance of azur. All right, so I can play that like this. That would be like with these 2 fingers here, because that gives me the most kind of movement, and then I have to reach up kind of with my pinky. I could bar it, but if I bar it, then I'm probably going to be picking up the one below it, which is fine because it's going to be a pretty solid number there with the perfect fourth. So I can do that, because unless you're finger picking it, I might bar it, or I can try not to by kind of lifting this knuckle up. So I always want to play it this way. Here's the A minor. If you play it this way, I usually think of that from the perspective of an A minor. If I look at it from the perspective of the C, because if you play this, it would be the A minor. That's a more comfortable shape to me, which is like the same shape down here, but it's here. But then I can go from there to bar off here. I could still think of this from the perspective of the C, right? But then it would be like it has the 9 and it still has the 3 and the 9. Okay. So then I could, if that's the 3 up there, I could bring the 5. Maybe I can bring the 5 down here. Be kind of a bit of a stretch. I'm still going to call it a reach forward quadrant chord because this one is in the upper right quadrant. So I'm going to say, all right, if I was here, it would be ba-boom. And then down to 8. So it's doable up top. It's a bit of a stretch though. And then if I do that, I'm muting this string, which is the Locrian, and I'm muting this string, which is the Aeolian, or I'm trying to somehow. Maybe with the top of this finger. So it's not the most comfortable reach on that one. I also have a 5 up here. So the 5 is up here. That's a little bit more comfy of a reach. So I could go up here and then there. So maybe like that. So now I'm going to once again mute this string. I'm going to mute this string. Now I could bar it off again and grab both of those, but let's do it this way first. So if I'm noodling down here, or I can bar this off like so, and then grab this one and this one. But then if I do that, I'm picking up the 5 here, which is fine. So now I've got now I got 2 5s. Oh, wait a sec. I have to use the pinky. I want to get that bar in place. so nice and it's so nice and bright and pretty. I don't play in the I don't play in the Ionian that much. Okay, let's go. Let's go from the what did I add? Now I'm going to add the 7. So we're going to add the 7. So it's a major 7. We only have a major 7 off of the Ionian and the Lydian because all the minors have a 10 note away minor 7, as does the crazy Locrian, as does the Mixolydian. So this is one of the only 2 modes with a 11 note away major 7. So let's go back to the normal one, which would be like that. And if we're looking for a 7 off of the Ionian, 7 minus 1 would be 6 modal half steps up, plus 1 would be 7. So we're looking for a Locrian. So Locrian, there's going to be one right here. If I want to look for that distance-wise, it's 11 notes away. So if I was to count that out, it would be 5 notes between the strings here, 10 between this way because there's a fault line, moved it up, 10, and then 11 right here. So this one is 11 notes away from the Ionian node, 6 modal half steps, which is a major 7th scale degree. I can call that then a C major 7, not a C7, C major 7, because it has an 11 note away 7th. C7 would be the Mixolydian distance. So, but I'd like to call it something without naming the C, so I can look at it from relative position, which would be a 4-note Ionian chord, or an Ionian 3 modal whole step chord, or an Ionian, because if you go from the Ionian 3 modal whole steps up, it would be 3 times 2, which would be 6 modal whole steps up, which would be a 7th scale degree. From a, you can have the endpoint, which would be a Nashville number 7, 1, Nashville number 1, 7 modal range chord, or Ionian Locrian modal range chord, an IN modal range chord, or from a color system, spring green to a yellow modal range chord with a distance of punch, because the 11-note distance for our color system, if you're following that, which there's a link to if you want to look at it more, is punch. All right. I'm sure the professors out there will love my clinker terminology on that one. It's my clinker term. I'm gonna so here's the let's see. Well, how can I grab that one? I could just noodle this way, barring this. So I could grab, instead of grabbing this 5, I can grab that one. And I'm still going to call it an upper quadrant chord because I have the 3 up in the reach forward quadrant. So I could go boom, 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 and then I'm going to mute. Well, I could ring out this 7 if I wanted to, because there's an 11 note away, but it's going to be a very heavy 7, a very heavy sound. Let's mute it for, and then I could throw that one in, which is way outside the. So pretty. I could just hit these 2 to get the 7, to get the 8, to get that 7 in there. I have another 7 up here. So let me try that reach forward again, which I totally butchered yesterday because I was tired and I don't play up there that much, and because of my guitar doesn't have a cutoff. That's why. In case you were wondering, so it's not my fault. But I'm going to go up here and it's going to be a 14. That would be the minor 7. So if it was a minor 7, I could do that walk back. But now it's a major 7, which is a bit more of a reach, clearly doable up top on the guitar because it's closer frets, but then it gets wonky if you have if you're getting hit by the non-cutout here. But now notice that the major 7 to me is more tensiony. Why? Because it's right behind the root than the minor 7. So again, it's kind of another kind of misnomer where you would kind of think under normal conditions the minors would always be more tensiony than the major or sadder or whatever you want to call it. But clearly here, that's the Jaws kind of interval. It's always right behind it. All right, so that's interesting. Got a 7 up there. 7, 11. Obviously, we have a 7 right behind it. That's the lead-in note. right. Ugh, man, I'm really slacking today, huh? I'm on the I'm only on the 9. The 9. Let's add the 9. So 9. So the 9 is equivalent to the 2. So the 2 minus 1 is 1 modal half step up, plus 1 would be the 2. So I'm looking for the Dorian. Obviously, the Nashville numbers are based on the major scale. So I shouldn't. So the math is easier, right? If I'm looking for a if I'm looking for the 9, which is equivalent to the 2, then normally I'd have to say 2 minus 1 is 1 modal half step up, plus what I'm on, the 1, which is the 2, right? And so it is the 2. Okay, so it was the Dorian. So I have a Dorian down here. I have a Dorian up top, so maybe I can pick up this one. What would I call that? Let's go a little quicker here. Got to pick up the pace. I got to pick up the pace. I don't like picking up the pace is heavy. Pace is heavy, man. My back hurts. Pick up the pace. Pick it up now. Okay. My back hurts. All right. We're going to say that it's going to be 2 note away. So what would I call that then? It would be a C major 9, a C major 9, or it would be an Ionian, a 5-note Ionian chord, or an Ionian 4 modal half step, because 4 modal half steps up from the Ionian would be 4 modal whole steps up from the Ionian would be 4 times 2, or 8 modal half steps, which would be a major 9. But if it was a local distance, it would be 2 notes away from the Ionian node, 1 modal half step, or 1 plus 7, which would be 8 modal half steps, which would be a major second, or major 2 plus 7, which would be a major 9. We could call it by endpoint, which would be a 1-2 modal range chord, an Ionian Dorian modal range chord, an ID modal range chord, color system spring green. I'm sorry, yellow green to spring green modal range chord with a distance of chartreuse. Chartreuse distance. So I could just borrow that off. And then grab this one up top. But if I do that, I'm going to be picking up the 6 here, which I haven't got to yet with the A. Wouldn't be a problem. But maybe I have gotten to this one, so maybe I grab that. And then I'm picking up this 5 too, another 5, if I do it that way. Now wait a second, I have to grab the 3 up top. That's not going to work. Need to grab. I can't grab all of that, dude. I need. Oh, now my fingernails. Oh, you're making excuses? Yeah, I'm making excuses. My pedicurist didn't cut my pinky fingernail and right, and now I can't play, and now I look stupid. Now I look like a tinker, whatever that is. Never heard that before. I think it means you hit the wrong notes, but I'm not really sure. Maybe I'm saying something I shouldn't. Maybe I'm saying a banned YouTube word or something. I don't know. But yeah, my pedicures made me look stupid. I'm gonna fire that person. She's get out of here. I'm gonna. So let's just keep going. Let's go to the 11. The 11 is like the 4. 4 minus 1 would be 3 modal half steps up, plus 1 would be 4. So we're looking for the Lydian. The Lydian is right underneath, so I can just grab that one. That's easy. So what would I call that? I would call it a C major 11, or I would like to call it like a 6-note Ionian, or I would call it an Ionian 5 modal whole step chord, because if you go 5 modal whole steps up, it would be 10 modal half steps to get to the distance of the last note, which could be 5 notes away, or 5 plus 12 from the Ionian node, 3 modal half steps from a local distance, or 3 plus 7, which would be 10, which would be a perfect 4, or perfect 4 plus 7, which would be a perfect 11. and that's a very solid distance. It's in all of the, you get, if you go 5 notes away from any node, you hit another continent or another note in the collection of notes, except if you start from the Lydian. The Lydian is the exception on that one. The mainstream of sewage media tries to hide it, but they can't, because we can see it now. I wanna, all right, and let's just do the last one. The last one is, I'm just running through them now. I don't even care. We're gonna go to the 13. The 13 is like the 6. 6 is off by 1 on the local distance from a modal half step, so 6 minus 1 is 5, plus the 1 Nashville that we're on is back up to 6. And that's the Aeolian. So I could pick this one up. I also have the open. Oh man, I was looking at this as though that was the open strings over here before. Well, that was stupid. Yeah, that's the 2nd fret. Idiot! All right. Anyway, what am I doing? So I'm going to say this is going to be, that's why I don't like starting on the 2nd fret, but I don't have enough room on my thing to work up past 12 unless I make the fretboard small. Then I got to rearrange everything. I don't want to do that. So anyways, 13 is, so what would I call that? A C major 13. I'd rather call it a 7-note Ionian chord or an Ionian 6 modal whole step, because if you go 6 up from the Ionian, 6 times 2 is 12 modal half steps up, so the distance would be a 9 note away from a local distance, or 9 plus 12 from the Ionian node, 5 modal whole steps, or 5 plus 7, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 11, 12, 7, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which would be a major 6, or major 6 plus 7, which would be a major 13. All right. Saying it all aggressive like, I don't know. I'm going to have to. Oh. Well, that if I just grab those top 3, it would look like an A minor. But I'm looking at it from the perspective of this note, the C rather than the A. So I could do that. It's not an A minor, it's just, it's a C major 13, but then I dropped everything in the middle, except the 1, 3, 6. But then I can pick, but then I have another one down here. So I could just bar this whole bad doggy off and then grab those ones up top.